There's this quiet, almost invisible hesitation that creeps in the moment we think about starting something new. Maybe a project that's been brewing in the back of your mind or a dream you've tucked away because it just feels too big to begin. I want to talk about that today because it's something so many of us experience but rarely say out loud. It's the fear of starting, that heavy pause before the first step, where your mind starts swirling with doubts, worries, and that nagging voice insisting everything must be perfect before you even dare to try. I remember the first time I felt this deeply. I had this idea for a creative project, something close to my heart, but every time I sat down to work on it, a wave of overwhelm washed over me. My mind would conjure all the things that could go wrong, the mistakes I might make, the judgment I might face, or simply the fear that I wasn't ready. It was like standing at the edge of a vast ocean, toes just touching the water, but unable to dive in because the waves felt too unpredictable. What if the water is too cold? What if I can't swim? What if I drown in my own mistakes? That fear isn't just a personal quirk or a sign that you're not cut out for your dreams. It's a shared human experience, one that connects us in ways we often don't realize. It's a part of the creative journey, a natural hesitation that shows up before every beginning, whether it's launching a business, writing a book, starting a blog, or even making a big life change. This fear of starting is like a gatekeeper, standing guard at the doorway of our potential, whispering all the reasons why now isn't the right time, or why we need to wait until everything is perfect. And here's the thing. That gatekeeper is usually fueled by something I call the perfection trap. It's that sneaky voice inside that convinces us that our ideas aren't good enough yet, that we need to polish every detail, learn every skill, or have the perfect plan before we can move forward. But while waiting for perfection, the fear grows louder, and the dream quietly slips further away. I hear from so many women and creators who feel exactly this way. One friend told me how she sat on a brilliant idea for years, convinced she needed the perfect website, the perfect branding, and the perfect social media presence before she could even tell anyone about it. Another shared how the fear of her writing not being good enough kept her from publishing the stories she'd been carrying for decades. These stories aren't unusual. They're a mirror reflecting what many of us face. And it's important to know you're not alone in this. Sometimes it helps just to name the fear, to give it a voice and recognize it for what it is. When I started acknowledging my fear of starting, I realized it wasn't a barrier meant to stop me, but a signpost pointing me toward growth. Fear, in this way, becomes a companion on the journey rather than an enemy. It signals that something meaningful is about to begin, something that matters deeply. I want to invite you to take a moment here with me. Think about that project, that dream, or that change you've been holding back on. What does the fear of starting look like for you? Is it a whisper telling you you're not ready? Is it a flood of what-ifs that paralyze your thoughts? Or maybe it's a quiet voice telling you to wait for the right moment that never seems to come. It's okay to feel this fear. In fact, it's more than okay. It's a natural part of stepping into something new. The hesitation is not a sign that you should stop. It's a sign that you're on the brink of something important. When I first started to share my own struggles with this fear, I found an incredible sense of relief and connection. Others began to open up as well, and together we realized how universal and human this experience is. This fear often feels like a heavy weight, but it doesn't have to be a permanent one. It's something we can learn to lean into, to understand, and eventually to move through. When you see the fear of starting as a normal, even expected part of the creative process, it loses some of its power to stop you. It becomes less about avoiding failure and more about embracing the messy, beautiful beginning of something new. I want to share a little story from early in my journey that might resonate. I was working on launching a new coaching program, and every time I thought about hitting publish on the registration page, I froze. I convinced myself the content wasn't perfect, the website wasn't polished, and my message wasn't clear enough. Each excuse felt valid, and yet deep down I knew waiting for perfection was just another way of hiding from the fear of starting. One evening, after wrestling with myself for hours, I asked a close friend to hold me accountable. She reminded me gently, "Kimberly, progress over perfection. Just start. Small steps build momentum." That simple nudge helped me take the imperfect action I needed to finally launch. And from there, everything unfolded in ways I hadn't expected. That moment taught me something vital. The fear of starting doesn't disappear by waiting or planning endlessly. It fades when we take imperfect action. The first step doesn't have to be flawless, just has to be taken. When we start despite our fears, we create space for growth, learning, and momentum. The fear might still be there, but it becomes quieter, more manageable, and less in control. So if you find yourself stuck in that silent hesitation, know this. Your fear is a sign of something meaningful calling you forward. It's okay to feel it, to acknowledge it, and to hold it gently. You don't have to wait until everything feels perfect. You don't have to wait at all. The act of starting, even in imperfection, is where your journey truly begins. As we continue, I'll walk with you through understanding how this fear is tied to the perfection trap, and how you can begin to shift your mindset toward embracing imperfect action. But for now, just sit with this feeling. Recognize that the fear of starting is a shared human experience, one that connects you to countless others who have stood exactly where you are now. And remember, you are not alone. Let's take a moment to dive a little deeper into what's really going on when that fear of starting grips us so tightly. I want to talk about something I call the perfection trap. It's this subtle yet powerful force that convinces us to delay, to hesitate, to wait, sometimes indefinitely, until everything is just right. The perfection trap is that whisper in your mind that says, "Not yet. You need to fix this. You need to learn more. You need to prepare better." And while it might sound like good advice, it often holds us captive, stopping us from moving forward. The perfection trap is sneaky because it dresses itself up as practical wisdom or self-care. We tell ourselves that we're being responsible by waiting for the perfect plan, the perfect timing, or the perfect set of skills. But in reality, it's a form of procrastination disguised as preparation. We get caught in this endless loop of tweaking and refining, hoping to eliminate every possible mistake before we start. The problem is, perfection is an illusion, an ever-moving target that no one can truly hit. I've seen this play out in so many ways, both in my life and in the stories of others. There was a woman I know who dreamed of opening a small bakery. She spent years perfecting recipes, designing the interior, and researching the perfect location. But the bakery never opened because she kept waiting for that perfect moment when everything aligned. Another friend, a writer, would rewrite her manuscript over and over, convinced that if she just polished it a bit more, it would be ready for the world. Years passed, and the book remained unpublished. These examples aren't just isolated incidents. They're reflections of a pattern many of us fall into. Research supports this too. Studies show that perfectionism often leads to procrastination and increased anxiety, which ironically keeps people from achieving their goals. When we set impossibly high standards, the fear of not meeting them can be paralyzing. Instead of feeling motivated, we feel stuck. And so, the fear of starting grows stronger, fed by our own perfectionist expectations. What's important to remember is that this struggle isn't a sign of weakness or failure. It's a universal challenge, especially for those of us who care deeply about our work and want it to matter. The perfection trap can feel like a protective shield, trying to guard us from criticism, failure, or disappointment. But in doing so, it often ends up robbing us of the joy and fulfillment that come from simply beginning. I want to share a story that illustrates this beautifully. A friend of mine, a talented artist, was preparing for her first big gallery show. She spent months perfecting every painting, adjusting colors, and reworking details. When the opening night arrived, she was overwhelmed with self-doubt, worrying that nothing was good enough. But as the evening unfolded, she realized something powerful. Her work didn't have to be perfect to touch people's hearts. In fact, the imperfections made her art relatable and authentic. That moment shifted her perspective, helping her see that waiting for perfection had only delayed her from sharing her gift with the world. The perfection trap often convinces us that we need to be flawless before we're worthy of attention or success. But real life, real growth, and real creativity thrive in imperfection. Think about it. Some of the most beloved stories, inventions, and breakthroughs emerged from messy, imperfect beginnings. The first draft, the early prototype, the initial launch, they're rarely perfect. They're simply the starting points that open the door to progress. One way to spot the perfection trap in your own life is to notice the language you use when you think about your project or dream. Do you find yourself saying things like, "I just need to learn one more thing," or "It's not ready yet," or "I need to wait for the perfect moment"? These phrases can be signals that perfectionism is holding you back. It's not about ignoring preparation or growth, but about recognizing when preparation becomes a form of avoidance. I also want to highlight that the perfection trap doesn't discriminate. It shows up for creators, entrepreneurs, students, and professionals alike. Whether you're starting a side hustle, launching a creative project, or making a big life change, perfectionism can sneak in and tell you to wait. The key is to become aware of it and gently challenge those limiting beliefs. What helps is shifting from a mindset of, I have to be perfect before I start, to, I can start now and improve as I go. This shift isn't always easy, especially if you've been conditioned to associate worth with flawless outcomes. But it's a freeing perspective that opens up space for growth, learning, and joy. When we embrace imperfection as part of the process, we give ourselves permission to be human, to make mistakes, to adjust, and to keep moving forward. I want to encourage you to reflect on this for a moment. What's one way the perfection trap might be showing up in your life? Is it in the planning, the waiting, or the self-talk that keeps you stuck? Naming it is the first step toward breaking free. When you begin to see perfectionism as a pattern rather than a truth, you start to reclaim your power to act. Remember, the perfection traps hold loosens when we take small, imperfect steps forward. Each step, no matter how small or flawed, builds momentum and confidence. It reminds us that progress over perfection is what truly counts. This is where the magic happens, when we move beyond the paralysis of perfection and embrace the messy, beautiful process of beginning. I've also noticed that sharing our struggles with others can be incredibly healing and empowering. When we realize that many people we admire have wrestled with the same fears and perfectionism, it lightens the burden. We're part of a larger community navigating this challenge together. And that sense of connection can fuel courage and inspire us to step out despite the fear. In the next part, I'll share how shifting your mindset to embrace imperfection can be a powerful turning point on your journey. But for now, just hold this understanding close. The perfection trap is real, but it's not undefeatable. It's a pattern that can be recognized, gently challenged, and eventually released. You don't have to wait for perfect conditions to start. The conditions you need are available now, even if they feel imperfect. So as you move forward, I invite you to watch for the perfection trap's whispers and remember that waiting for perfection often keeps you from the very progress and joy you're seeking. Taking imperfect action, even when it feels uncomfortable, is the pathway through this fear, the way to break free and begin. You are not alone in this, and the journey ahead holds so much possibility, even in its imperfect beginnings. I want to invite you now into a place of hope and possibility, a place where we begin to shift how we think about starting something new. Because here's the truth I've come to know deeply. Launching your project doesn't require perfection. In fact, embracing imperfection can be the very key that unlocks your progress and helps you build the momentum you've been longing for. I remember a moment in my own journey when this realization hit me like a gentle wave. I was trapped in that cycle of endless preparation, waiting for things to feel just right. The fear of making a mistake, of looking inexperienced or imperfect, was loud and constant. But then I began to see that waiting for perfection was actually keeping me stuck. I was holding myself hostage to an impossible standard, afraid to take that first step because it might not be flawless. And the truth was, that step didn't have to be perfect, it just had to be taken. This is where the idea of imperfect action comes in. Instead of waiting for everything to align perfectly, you start where you are, with what you have, and you move forward. You allow yourself to be a beginner, to make mistakes, to learn along the way. And here's the beautiful part. Those mistakes and adjustments are not failures. They're essential parts of growth and innovation. They shape your journey and refine your vision. I've seen this in the stories of many women who have taken imperfect action and found unexpected success. One entrepreneur I admire launched her business with a simple website and a basic service offering. It wasn't polished or perfect, but she started. Through feedback, trial, and error, she refined her approach and gradually built something thriving and authentic. Another friend began sharing her writing online with rough drafts and imperfect formatting. The response she received encouraged her to keep going, improving with each post, and eventually, she published a book that touched many lives. When we allow ourselves to begin imperfectly, we create space for momentum to build. Momentum is like a gentle current that picks us up and carries us forward. The first step might feel shaky or uncertain, but it leads to the next step and then another. Each action, no matter how small or imperfect, adds fuel to that momentum. And before long, what felt overwhelming becomes manageable, and what felt impossible becomes achievable. I want to remind you that this mindset shift, from waiting for perfection to embracing imperfect action, isn't about settling for less or ignoring the quality of your work. It's about releasing the grip of fear and self-doubt that tells you to delay. It's about trusting the process and recognizing that growth happens in the doing, not in the waiting. Progress over perfection becomes your guiding mantra, a gentle but powerful reminder to keep moving forward. It's also helpful to remember that no one starts off an expert. Every skill, every craft, every endeavor begins with the first imperfect step. Think about any person you admire. Chances are they stumbled, fumbled, and learned as they went along. Their success is not because they were perfect from the start, but because they were brave enough to begin imperfectly and keep going. This idea can be freeing, especially if you've been caught in the trap of needing to be ready or fully prepared. When you embrace imperfection, you give yourself permission to be human, to try, to fail, to adjust, and to grow. It's a compassionate way to approach your dreams, honoring your journey rather than demanding flawless results from the outset. I want to share a little story from my own experience that might resonate with you. When I first started sharing my voice and work with others, I was terrified that I wasn't good enough, or that my message wouldn't resonate. I hesitated for so long, caught in the perfection trap, until one day I decided to release that fear and simply show up as I was. I didn't have all the answers, and my early efforts were far from perfect. But by taking those imperfect steps, I began to build a community, to learn from feedback, and to grow in confidence. That imperfect beginning was the doorway to everything that followed. So, if you're feeling stuck, I want to encourage you to consider this. What would happen if you allowed yourself to start now, knowing it doesn't have to be perfect? What small, imperfect action could you take today that moves you closer to your dream? It might be drafting a rough outline, sharing your idea with a trusted friend, creating a simple version of your project, or even just making a list of next steps. These small actions are powerful because they break the cycle of hesitation and fear. They remind you that progress is possible, even when it feels uncertain. And here's a beautiful truth to hold on to. The journey of creation is rarely linear or neat. It's often messy, filled with twists and turns, adjustments and surprises. When you accept imperfection as part of this process, you free yourself from the pressure to control every outcome. You open your heart to exploration and discovery, allowing your work to evolve naturally. I want to acknowledge that embracing imperfection can be challenging, especially if you're used to striving for excellence, or if you've faced criticism in the past. It takes courage and kindness toward yourself to step into this new mindset. But remember, courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means moving forward despite it. And kindness means treating yourself with the same compassion you would offer a dear friend. As you think about the possibilities ahead, I invite you to reflect on the power of imperfect action. It is a gift you give yourself, the freedom to begin, to grow, and to create without the heavy burden of perfection. This mindset shift is not just practical, it's deeply spiritual. It aligns with the truth that you are enough as you are, and that your unique voice and contribution matter, even in their imperfect form. I'm here with you, walking this path of imperfect beginnings, and I want you to know that every step you take is significant. Each small action builds momentum, bringing you closer to the life and work you're meant to share. The fear of starting might still whisper in the background, but it will grow quieter as you embrace the courage to act. So let's hold this truth together. You don't have to be perfect to start. You just have to start. And in starting, you open the door to growth, learning, and unexpected blessings. The journey of imperfect action is a sacred one, filled with potential and promise. And it begins with your willingness to take that first step right now, just as you are. Now that we've embraced the idea that imperfect action is not just okay but powerful, let's explore some practical steps that can help you break free from the perfection trap and start moving forward today. I want to share strategies that have helped me and many others transform hesitation into momentum, turning dreams into tangible progress. First, one of the most effective ways to overcome overwhelm is to break your project into smaller, more manageable tasks. When a project feels huge or complex, it's easy to get stuck in paralysis, wondering where to even begin. But when you divide it into bite-sized pieces, each task feels doable. Instead of focusing on the entire mountain, you focus on climbing one small step at a time. For example, if you're launching a blog, Rather than thinking about building the entire website, start with something as simple as writing a single post or choosing a title. These small wins build confidence and momentum. Setting clear deadlines for these smaller tasks also helps. Deadlines create gentle pressure, which can motivate you to take action instead of waiting for the perfect moment. I often encourage people to set realistic but firm deadlines, ones that challenge without overwhelming. It's about creating a rhythm of progress, not perfection. Another practical strategy is to redefine what success means at the beginning of your project. Instead of aiming for flawless outcomes, focus on progress. Celebrate the small victories. Completing a task, sending that first email, or sharing your idea with someone. Recognize that each of these steps is a sign of movement forward. Reframing success in this way shifts your energy from fear and self-judgment to encouragement and growth. Creating a supportive environment is also key. This might mean finding accountability partners, friends, colleagues, or mentors who can encourage you and keep you motivated. Sharing your goals with someone who believes in you can make a big difference when the fear or self-doubt creeps in. Sometimes just knowing that someone else is rooting for you and checking in can spark the courage to keep going. Seeking feedback early on is another way to break out of the perfection trap. When we wait until everything feels perfect to share, we miss out on valuable insights that can help us improve. Inviting trusted people to see your work in progress opens the door to learning and adjustment. It can be scary to show something unfinished, but often, the feedback is encouraging and helps you grow faster than working alone in silence. I've seen these strategies in action many times. A friend of mine who wanted to start an online course broke down her project into weekly goals, creating one lesson at a time rather than trying to build the entire course all at once. She set deadlines and shared her progress with a small group of peers who gave her honest but supportive feedback. This approach kept her accountable and motivated, and before long, she had launched her course, Imperfect but Impactful. Another person I know struggled with perfectionism around public speaking. She started by practicing in front of a mirror, then moved to recording short videos for friends, and finally spoke at small local events. Each step was imperfect but intentional, gradually building her confidence and skill. The key was consistent, imperfect action paired with support and feedback. It's also helpful to cultivate a mindset of curiosity, rather than judgment. When you encounter setbacks or mistakes, instead of beating yourself up, try asking, "What can I learn from this?" Or, "How can I adjust to make this better?" This gentle curiosity transforms challenges into opportunities for growth and keeps you moving forward with a sense of purpose. Practicing self-compassion during this process is vital. Starting something new often stirs up feelings of vulnerability and self-doubt. Be kind to yourself, acknowledging that fear and hesitation are natural. When your inner critic becomes loud, gently remind yourself that every creator goes through this. You're not alone, and you're doing the brave work of beginning. Another practical tip is to create rituals or routines that support your progress. Maybe it's setting aside a specific time each day or week dedicated to your project, or creating a physical space that feels inspiring and focused. These small habits can anchor your efforts and make it easier to show up consistently. I also want to encourage you to remember that progress doesn't have to be perfect or linear. Sometimes you'll take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and that's okay. The important thing is to keep moving, even if the pace feels slow or uneven. Momentum builds through steady and perfect action, not through giant leaps all at once. When you start to apply these strategies, you might find that the fear of starting begins to loosen its grip. The heavy weight of perfectionism lifts a bit as you see yourself making real progress, however imperfect. This progress fuels your confidence and opens new possibilities you hadn't imagined before. It's empowering to realize that the tools to launch your project are already within your reach. You don't need to wait for perfect conditions or infinite resources. By breaking your project into smaller tasks, setting deadlines, seeking support and feedback, cultivating curiosity and compassion, and creating supportive routines, you create a foundation for action and growth. I want to invite you to take one small step today. It might feel uncomfortable or uncertain, and that's perfectly normal. But by choosing to act, you're choosing to break free from the perfection trap and step into your power as a creator. Remember, this journey is not about rushing or forcing things. It's about gentle, intentional progress, small steps that add up over time to meaningful change. Each imperfect action you take is a victory, and a beacon lighting the way forward. As you move forward, keep these strategies close to your heart. Use them as tools to support you when fear or doubt arise. And know that every small step you take is a powerful act of courage and faith in your dreams. You are capable, you are worthy, and you have everything you need to begin. The path is waiting for you, and the momentum you seek grows with each imperfect step. As we come to this moment together, I want to gently remind you of the heart of what we've explored. The beautiful truth that starting, even imperfectly, is the essential step toward the life and work you're meant to create. It's not about waiting for everything to be perfect or feeling completely ready. It's about choosing progress over perfection and taking that first brave step, however small it may be. I know that fear of starting can feel heavy and isolating, but I want you to carry this with you. You are not alone. There is a whole community of women and creators walking this path with you, each learning, growing, and stepping forward in their own unique way. And together we can support and encourage each other on this journey. If you've been holding back, wondering if now is the right time or if your work is good enough, I invite you to release those doubts today. Remember that the perfect moment rarely arrives fully formed. Instead, the perfect moment is what you make when you choose to begin despite the fear. It is in the act of starting that your momentum begins to build, and the path ahead becomes clearer. I want to encourage you to take a small imperfect action right now. It could be as simple as writing down your next step, sharing your idea with a trusted friend, or even just taking a deep breath and affirming your commitment to yourself. Whatever it is, know that this action is a victory. It is a seed planted in fertile soil, ready to grow and blossom over time. And as you take these steps, I warmly invite you to join a community of like-hearted women who are also breaking free from the perfection trap and stepping into their power. This space is one of encouragement, accountability, and shared wisdom, a place where you can find support, inspiration, and connection as you navigate your own journey. Together we rise. Before we close, I want to offer a moment of reflection and prayer, a sacred pause to settle your heart and strengthen your resolve. Let's take a breath together. Dear Spirit of courage and grace, thank you for the dreams you have planted in our hearts, even when fear tries to silence them. Help us to release the need for perfection, and to embrace imperfect action with kindness and faith. Give us the strength to take the first step, trusting that it will lead us where we need to go. Surround us with a community of support and encouragement, reminding us that we are never alone. May we find joy in the journey and courage in the stepping, knowing that every small action moves us closer to our purpose. Amen. As you carry this prayer with you, I want you to remember that your journey is sacred, and your dreams are worthy of being lived. The fear of starting may still visit, but it no longer has to hold you back. You have the tools, the community, and the courage to move forward. So, right now, I invite you to take that imperfect action. Begin where you are, with what you have, and watch how momentum grows. Your story is unfolding, and the world needs what only you can offer. Step into your power and let your light shine. Imperfectly, beautifully, and boldly. Thank you for being here, for your courage, and for your willingness to begin. We're walking this path together, and I can't wait to see where your journey leads. If you loved the story, like the video and subscribe.